Um, Hello everyone, my name is Hao Wang, and today is December the 17th, 2025. Today I'm presenting on feedback loops in the non-pregnant female reproductive system. So in this presentation, I will focus on how the reproductive system uses communication and coordination to control hormone levels across the menstrual circle. The key idea is that the brain and the ovaries constantly send signals back and forth. So those signals are mainly hormones. Most of the time, the system just uses the negative feedback to keep things stable and controlled. At one important moment, it switches to positive feedback to trigger ovulation. And by the end, you should be able to explain how these feedback loops guide the normal cycle and why timing matters so much. On this slide, I'm introducing the main communication pathway called the hypothalamic pituitary ovulatory axis. Think of it as a three-part conversation. First, the hypothalamus in the brain releases gonadotropin, releasing hormone or GnRH. A really important detail is that GnRH is released in pulses, not as a constant signal. Those pulses tell the next gland, the anterior pituitary, what to do. Second, the pituitary responds by releasing two hormones, follicle stimulating hormone, or just FSH, and luteinizing hormone, or just is called LH. Third, FSH and LH will travel through the blood to the ovaries. There, they control follicle development and stimulate the ovaries to just produce estrogen and progesterone. Those ovarian hormones then send feedback signals back to the brain and pituitary, which is how the system stays coordinated. Now let's move into the early part of the menstrual cycle, called the follicular phase. So the main theme here is negative feedback. At the beginning of the cycle, several follicles start developing in the ovary. As they grow, they produce estrogen, but it's moderate levels. At these moderate levels, estrogen acts like a brake. It tells the hypothalamus and pituitary, essentially, we have enough signal right now, so do not push too hard. So estrogen reduces GnRH output and also helps reduce FSH and LH release. This negative feedback prevents the ovaries from being overstimulated. It keeps hormone level from getting too high and actually helps the body select a dominant follicle instead of just letting many follicles fully mature at the same time. So in this phase, communication is steady and controlled, and coordination is about stability. This slide covers the most dramatic moment in the cycle, the switch from negative feedback to positive feedback. which leads to the LH surge and ovulation. As the dominant follicle becomes fully mature, estrogen levels rise much higher than before. The key point is that estrogen has different effects depending on its level and how long it stays high. So when estrogen becomes higher and stays high for a sustained period, the system flips. Instead of acting like a brake, estrogen becomes an accelerator. High estrogen stimulates hypothalamus and pituitary to increase signaling. That increase GnRH signaling effect and causes a large surge in luteinizing hormone. This is called the LH surge. The LH surge is what triggers ovulation. It helps the follicle rupture and release oocyte. This is a classic example of positive feedback because signal reinforces itself until a clear event happens. Then the system moves on to the next phase. After ovulation, the circle enters the luteal phase. So the dominant structure in the ovary is no longer the follicle, but the corpus lutein. The corpus lutein forms from remnants of the follicle of ovulation. So the corpus lutein secretes progesterone and also some estrogen. So in this phase, these hormones restore negative feedbacks. So progesterone is especially important for stabilizing the uterine lining and preparing the body for possible implantation. But hormonally, the progesterone and estrogen also send a clear message back to the brain and pituitary, slow it down. So because of that negative feedback, the GnRH, the FSH, and also the LH levels fall. This prevents the second ovulation from happening in the same circle. It also keeps the system focused on supporting a potential early pregnancy. So if implantation does not happen, the corpus lutein breaks down, the progesterone and estrogen drop, and that hormone drop helps trigger the menstruation and resets the cycle. This slide ties the phase together and just highlights the coordination across the whole cycle. The menstrual cycle is not just a list of hormones, it's a timed sequence where each step sets up the next step. Negative feedback dominates most of the circle. It keeps the system stable and prevents the hormone level from being chaotic. Positive feedback appears as one key point to create a decisive transition ovulation. Then the negative feedback returns again to support the luteal phase and prevents another ovulation. This coordination depends on timing. If the signals rises too early, rise too late, or do not rise enough, the cycle can become irregular. For example, if the LH surge does not happen correctly, ovulation may not occur. This is called anovulation. and it can contribute to irregular cycles or infertility. So communication is the hormone signaling between organs, and coordination is the timing and feedback logic that makes the whole cycle work. So to wrap up, the female reproductive system is controlled by feedback loops that allows the brains and the ovaries to communicate constantly. Negative feedback is the main mechanism for stability. It keeps GnRH, FSH, and LH in a controlled range during most of the cycle. Positive feedback is rare but essential because it actually creates a LH surge that triggers ovulation at the correct time. Together, these feedback loops coordinate normal reproductive function across the menstrual cycle. If communication or timing breaks down, the cycle can become irregular and ovulation may not occur. Thank you for listening.